at the age of 5, I got caught up in watching anime, and I ended up a lot playing video games. Later down in my life, past being playing Skyrim and many other games in due time, I end up jumping into League of Legends. And there are only 3 games that I particular played an immense amount of time. No, I'm not talking about hundreds of hours, I'm talking probably even thousands of hours. Years even. And those games were League of Legends, Ark, and World of Warcraft. Unfortunately, all those games went away, and League of Legends started fading. Part of the reason why I have this concern of LCS and everything that is falling is because over the Riot's decisions as of recent that they have made, and a lot of the calamity that's been falling, I guess, League of Legends as a whole. I don't think that that League is heading into the right direction here. I think it's heading into a very bad direction to where it could be the actual downfall of the entire game in itself. And I think we should all start, at least I should start, with Riot's 2023 updates for it. Now, obviously, we see that this is not really the precursor of what we would want to be seeing when we watch or play League of Legends. We see that in most time that it has been most starting on the weekends. But as you see, it seems that they want to switch it down to the weekdays. And that being said, I don't think that's good. With the weekdays, normally it was going to starting is normally going to be at 12 o'clock p.m. 12 o'clock p.m. and going until around 5, give or take. And that's not good enough. I don't think that's going to be really the way that we should do it, because you're only be catering to one specific of a fan base. I think my greater concern is that they're trying to cater to the European market or the European audience, and that doesn't seem very quite logical. In fact, Monte Cristo that goes over this exactly why this is kind of a problem, and where I think that this is not really a good thing, but more of a very bad thing.
About Riot, doesn't it? Which is that, and I saw tweets from people who were formerly on Riot's data team that said there were times in the LCS history where it was over 50% European viewers. I suspected that they would start at 12 before this happened to capture the European audience, because starting it at, probably, if you say East Coast, approximately 5 hours of games to do the 5 best of ones a day, right? So if you were to start, say, at 6 p.m. on the East Coast, you'd be going from 6 to 11. Reasonable for the East Coast. And, honestly, starting at 3 isn't so bad for the West Coast.
Which I agree that with Monty, is that you would be meeting the audiences of the East Coast of the US, and then you would also be meeting the audience of the West Coast of the US. And then you would even get some trickling in from the European countries or what have you, or the UK, and that it's a better mix. Whereas in this case, what they're doing, they're only getting probably the European audience for some apparent reason, hardly any of the West Coast audience, and then maybe some of the East Coast audience. But they're mostly catering to the European audience, because why? What point is this? And this is my concern. Other than the issues with the scheduling, we also have issues to where Riot has lost one of their 3 main staple holds for what they had for essentially for at least a decade now, if not longer. And those people happen to be Pastry Time, Freak, and Dash. And these people have been part of the league scene for, as I said, a decade now, and now that they're gone, unfortunately, what we had from Dash is that his departure wasn't really voluntary. It was more along the lines of him being kind of pushed out from the league, from Riot, and being the main host, which is concerning.
Is that I wasn't spoken to prior to the news just being, delivered, like being told that this was what was happening. that would probably be the only piece in the whole puzzle that I think really eats at me.
And his post on Twitter, it kind of doesn't really explain too much. What it says is that it said that he will be leaving the LCS, but not saying that Riot is specifically removing him without his own volition. I mean, that's kind of a bigger problem here, and even Pastry Time didn't really leave due to his own volition either. He was kind of just let go. And these are the problems that I think Riot has been facing, where they just seem to be making every single wrong step imaginable, and it's not good. Where is Riot, or the LCS rather, going to be heading if they're going to be particularly aiming for a better league or something that would benefit the LCS? Well, you lost 3 of your main people, and they were pretty much the face of league, or at least the face of the broadcasting team. Now they're gone, and you're not stuck with very much. Another great concern that I have with League in particular, or Riot's kind of decision making, is rather than, it seems to be a way bigger issue. We have that Riot seems to be having a lot of bugs happening in their game. And this is a problem that Riot needs to address immediately. And I think that when we come down to this conclusion, it's not good. We see these bugs happen time and time again, and it's just not, it doesn't seem like the game is in a very stable condition at all. We see that there was a Rek'Sai bug that prevents the Riot, that pretty much pauses the game. Then you have a more egregious issue to where that when a champion dies, they're immediately revived at the fountain. And this doesn't happen just once. This happens about 4 times in one game. This is a huge issue that I think Riot needs to have. In fact, we have some more even bigger issues. We even have some game-winning issues where Lucian's Malmortis did not activate at the correct time, and this seems to be the case to where this caused a pretty big of an outcry in the League community, at least in terms of what happened. The Malmortis should have activated and saved Lucian, and that probably would have actually changed the fight. Then we have another huge issue where, well, not necessarily huge, but an issue where a Herald hits the tower, but the player doesn't seem to get any of the gold, which is concerning in the least. And these are all these problems that we have. Let's not end up to the fact that we had more issues pertaining to the boomerang issue with Hanar and the tower. These issues are not small ones. They're relatively big, and they're honestly very concerning in the mere fact that, is the game really that stable? I say it's not. And what I would also go down to even saying is that Riot may have to fix up their coding or completely make a new game. Because as what we're seeing right now, and what I honestly predict, that more bugs are going to hit the game, and the game is going to break down even further with adding all these new champions and stuff into the game. I think what they need to do is halt their production on any new champions and start working up from the ground up with a brand new sort of code, not the same code, but a completely new code with a potentially even a brand new engine, and work off of that. Because what we're seeing here is not just a game of just being okay, a game that's breaking down, slowly collapsing upon itself. And that's something that is beyond just issues of their decisions. Now, this may seem to be a little bit of a petty issue, but I think we also have problems with the LCS in general. Here we have is that the Europeans, or rather EU, seems to be really surpassing the NA LCS by a great margin now. They seem to be doing way better in production, and even their academy systems are way better than ours. They have this thing called European Masters, and their production, and on top of their production, their announcement for their new players is even more in a stable condition. Look at it, even with this intro here, you see that the intro that you have is very well produced, very well done, and even gets you somewhat hyped for the actual games to start beginning. Whereas you see with the Academy here, there's just nothing. You type in the LCS Academy or NA Academy intro and you find nothing of that fact. There's nothing pertaining to anything here that is showing people that come and watch the Academy system. In fact, even when we compare the actual views of both the European Masters and even the NA Academy, the views are massively different. Some ranging between 50,000 views to, with the NA Academy, to only around 1.3k views. You can see the actual want of wanting to watch the games is very low. Even if we go down to the production and the mere fact of the broadcasts are even completely different. And honestly, quite better from the European standard. The broadcast here, as you see, seems to really be going well, and there's actual front, and they're actually on the desk, and they're actually communicating and having things in the background going on. Whereas you see from the NA Academy broadcast, that's not really the case here. What you're seeing here is just two guys sitting at home with some distortion and lighting and other major issues happening that doesn't seem to really be want people to watch the NA Academy broadcast, let alone be able to deal with it or watch it due to being the horrible production that it is. The gameplay is even what I would say completely different in this aspect, where we have European games where they're more better produced and looking quite well and entertaining and making people want to stick around and watch. Where you have the NA Academies where it's not like this. It's poor, it's not really good gameplay, and the production is not really the best that you would want to see from the game in general. This is a major issue from the NA scene in general, and that's a problem. I don't really see how this can really be a functioning game when, or rather not functioning, but a functioning scene that you want to have your people have your own country permit to, their own region. And to add insult to injury as well, we seem to have more issues pertaining to on the other side of things. A lot of people came out and hating the new 2023 cinematic trailer, and honestly, I don't really blame them. The cinematic trailer is really bad, and compared to other trailers that you've seen here, it seems that there's more thought, more passion, more want in the actual game in itself. And this doesn't really just impact, I would say, the just NALCS, but I think this also impacts the whole game, every region, because this doesn't want to make anybody more wanting to watch the game. When you drop the first cinematic, you drop it to want and dice and have people see that this game is still awesome and amazing. But what we see here is that every single game is just not the way it should be. The cinematics are great from a couple of years ago, but with this one, it's not. I think we have much bigger issues to portray here than in what meets the eye, and these are issues. And this is not just the only thing that I think Riot has. At least from the NA point of view, we have where our casters are not great. Everybody talks about LeTigris being horrible, cringe, or what have you, and that's not good. Even when you look up LeTigris rap or the LeTigris cringe fest, you don't really see them. When you look into LeTigris rap, there is nothing to be seen. You don't see the rap. You see rap that she does that is in particular to what she's done on her own Twitch channel, but that is not what she did or what she said on YouTube. It's been almost like it's been completely scrubbed from the internet. Where do you find it? I'm not even sure, because you would have to specifically remember the date and time of that video on when it actually occurred. And that's not there, and this is a great concern. And as much as I didn't like Overly May for that much for being part of the LCS broadcast, she did bring some flair or some type of spark to the scene. And even with Rich, he kind of comes out and says that this is kind of the same thing that I'm talking about here.
It's mental, like, and you consider what the position they're in now and the continued attitude they have towards not being kingmakers, by the way, also with the casting, with production, and why Overly, for example, doesn't work in NA. Spoiler, it wasn't because no one was watching their content. Like, that was actually one of the few things left propping it up. Like, wasn't for me. I thought it was horrendous and cringe, and I hate the forced narrative that anime and esports are married together. But whatever, it got views, didn't it? And why would you fire that person? Why wouldn't you just fully lean into that and be like, holy shit, okay, sure, maybe it's a slight bastardization of the product or whatever, but it gets views, it drives interest. And to just always, whenever, it's like the person, you can't help the person who doesn't want to be helped. And every time it's like, yes, it's working, right, it's getting better, maybe they're going to be nursed back to full health. It's like, get away from me, I don't want these pills.
Yeah, and as you can see here, when Overly makes her statement that she is being left from the LCS. This was not due to her own volition either. They just kind of removed her and replaced with a Tigress, which does not seem to be really a good candidate for it. She's very bland, she just made numerous amount of gaffes, and not really good ones, and she doesn't bring anything. That's the problem. I don't think they really care. She feels more of a diversity hire than anything, to where she's just not good at her job in general. And if we go back to the bugs here, there has been such a bad bug in particular that they had to, due to an endgame bug, that had a critical impact on the state of the game. This happened in LEC to where they had to completely redo the entire game. The chrono break didn't even function. In fact, it seemed to keep on persisting over and over again. And this whole issue lasted a full hour of pauses. My great concern here is that the game is dying in more ways than one, starting with the NALCS and going to move on up. And my concern is, will this ever change? I don't think that Riot really knows what they're doing, or rather they're actively trying to destroy everything inimaginable to them. Now, I've always loved League of Legends, and this is something that has been a great passion to me. I have started with my own organizations as well, where it comes down to particularly where I had Team Spicy Boys, Temporal Gaming, and one that I don't really like being a part of or even want to announce, Ozone Esports. And we all I competed in, and we did some amateur stuff, and we also even won one of the part of the tournaments in recent esports. Now, granted, this is not really a great accomplishment, but it was a good accomplishment to me because we had success. We were always having success. And I love League of Legends, and part of me still kind of does. But part of the reason why I'm kind of moving away, even with my own friends for that matter are moving away, is because the community has become immense amount of, I want to say, cancer, and even along the lines of just the cancerous part of League, the game in itself doesn't seem to want to function correctly in terms of how champions are being played. I think Riot really needs to reestablish on where their grounds are, where their people are, because even still, I don't think it's really the greatest thing that Riot has ever done. We have issues that need to happen, that seem to be happening, and they are not being fixed or addressed. Even Riot's lack of communication has been a huge, massive issue as well. Now, we have that, of course, that these issues may pertain and never be fixed, where Riot will continue to have their biggest game, League of Legends, fall and be stuck with Valorant. But the problem with Valorant is that they have other games that are also coming up as well that could be competing in a spot. I don't think Valorant is a very stable condition to where you think, okay, this game's going to be ongoing. Right, you took the area by storm with your game, League of Legends, and it's still your bread and butter, and it's still what keeps your whole area alive. Just because Valorant is up does not mean you should just quit on your one other game, especially since Valorant can be in a very shaky space to where if another game comes out and people lose its popularity, you lose your whole game, and then you lose League, and then you lose it on your company. But at this point, I don't feel like Riot is really making all these great decisions. At the end of the day, I think that a lot of League of Legends players may have some issues, or actually maybe some concerns. They never want to address the toxicity of the game, and they never want to ban the correct people. Instead, they'll ban your speech rather than they'll ban the actual people's actions of the game, causing people to not want to play it. Even when I play back relatively very few times when I get onto League, I get people that are either incredibly toxic, or the people are in general where they're toxic no matter where they just leave the game, which has happened quite a few times, even playing very briefly, and they just ruin the game for everybody else. Riot needs to step up, and I think they need to step up quickly, otherwise their game will cease to exist, and we won't have the game that we all loved anymore. Hey guys, I am so happy that you guys have been subscribing to my channel, and honestly, I couldn't say more. I love every last one of you guys for doing it, and I hope we to grow. I know this particular YouTube channel or this video is quite a bit different, more closer to a documentary than anything else. But I wanted to branch out a little bit, and I also want to express one of my passions and one of my loves for a game that I've had that seems to fallen out in recent years, especially this one. I think that when my audience gets to know me a little bit more, they get to understand me more where I come from. My YouTube channel will be more in terms of coming along to this type of format in terms of podcasts, because I think that at the end of the day, we're still people, and we still need to wind down from the toxicity that is also around the world, and, well, in general. Hope you guys liked the video, and hopefully we can find a way to where we can fix not only League of Legends, but our communities as well.